So hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and I think I finally did enough testing to say, okay, here are the best missions for farming relics. I've been farming relics for a couple of months now, and I always take notes, on how long the mission took and how many relics I got, and at the moment I'm sitting on 1038 relics, even though I have been using some of them to get the new primed items and ducats. I have 261 Lith relics, 213 Meso relics, 404 Neo relics, and 160 Axi relics. So let's go over the missions that I've had the most success with when farming them. The best mission for farming Lith relics has to be Spear on Mars. It drops all the Lith relics on rotation A, which is waves 5 and 10, and if you run it with something like Ember with a World on Fire build, you can easily do 10 waves in under 6 minutes. Now you don't need Ember to run this mission efficiently. You could run something like Speed Nova or even Ignis or whatever really, but Ember makes this really easy and fast because you just turn on World on Fire and run from one side of the tile set to the other. Also, if you are running something like Ember and you want to bomb rush the waves to get your relics as fast as possible, it's better to do it solo rather than with a random party. Because when you're running solo, you will have far fewer enemies spawning in, so you don't have to kill as many of them, and you also won't have to worry about your party members running all over the tile set, causing the enemies to take cover in weird places and generally just slowing the enemies down. The drop chance on relics is not 100%, so every now and then you will get a random mod, something like Vitality or Trick Magazine, but most of the time you will get a Lith relic on waves 5 and 10. Moving on to Meso, and the best one for farming those, in my opinion, is Io on Jupiter. And this is basically a corpus version of Spear on Mars for Meso relics. Io is actually a little bit better than Spear on Mars because the tile set is even smaller and the spawn locations are closer to each other, so if you're running with something like Ember with the World on Fire build, you can do 10 waves in under 5 minutes. And all you have to do is exactly what I'm doing in the video, just turn on World on Fire and run from one side to the other. Now, I would very much recommend bringing in an automatic weapon to deal with nullifiers because you will get a couple of nullifiers going from waves 5 to 10. Because if you run this with a bow or a sniper rifle, it's either going to take you a while to take the bubble down, or you're going to have to run into the bubble, which will deactivate your World on Fire. So what you want to do is just bring an automatic rifle and start peppering the bubble as soon as you see it. Once the bubble goes down, the nullifier will just die from World on Fire, Maim, or whatever you are using to kill the enemies. And just like with Spear, the relics don't have 100% drop chance, so every now and then you will see stuff like Endo, but most of the time you will get a relic on rotation A, which is waves 5 and 10. Moving on to Neo relics, and the best mission in my opinion for farming those is Hydron on Sedna. Now this is another great defense mission tile set. It's pretty small and the spawn points are once again very close together. However, the enemies are much higher level than they were on Spear or Io, so Ember isn't actually that effective. And 10 waves are gonna take more like 10 to 12 minutes. Now I personally have 3 different setups that I use for Hydron, and the one I use depends on what I actually want to do on Hydron. So if I just want to farm Hydron solo, I'm gonna use Spore Sarin. I use a very high efficiency setup, so it's not as power hungry and I don't have to use like a bazillion energy restores, but it's kind of slow. The second setup I use is Resonating Banshee, and this one is much faster but also far more power hungry, so if you don't have EV Trinity with you, you're gonna have to use a lot of energy restores. This setup can get somewhat expensive if you just want to play solo because you will have to use energy restores, but if you're playing in an organized party where you have an EV Trinity and a buffer frame, it is amazing because it's straight up the fastest way to get through the waves on Hydron, so it's awesome for farming relics, and if you have a lens on your Banshee, it's also really good for farming focus. And finally, the one I use the most on Hydron, Leeching EV Trinity. This is a setup that I use for leveling weapons. I will simply unequip everything except the weapon I want to level up, I go into Hydron, and I give people energy using Energy Vampire and heal them using Blessing. However, there is a downside to running this setup, because even though you are giving people energy and you are healing them, you don't have any damage, so the speed at which you clear the waves is up to your teammates, and if you get into a party that's full of leeches and no one has any damage, it's gonna take you like 10 to 15 minutes to do 5 waves. And once again, the drop chance of the relics is not 100%, so every now and then you will get random mods and they drop on rotation A, which is waves 5 and 10. And finally we have Axi relics. Now Hydron does reward Axi relics on rotations B and C, which is waves 15 and 20. But if you just want to farm Axi relics, it's better to go onto Herakon on Pluto. Herakon is one of the few excavation missions that you can still do solo because it doesn't suffer from the idiotic enemy spawning if you're in solo mode, so even though there will be times where your excavator will be out of power, it's not gonna happen very often. Now the rewards on Herakon are overall really good because on rotation A, which is excavators 1 and 2, you can get a 400 endo pack, then on rotation B, which is excavator 3, you can get a neo relic, and then finally on rotation C, which is the 4th excavator, you can get an axi relic. And the reason why I chose Herakon rather than Hydron for Axi Relics is because you simply get to the final rotation much faster, especially if you're running in a party that can run 2 excavators at once. And getting a party on Herakon is not hard at all because it's a very popular farming location. And that's pretty much it for the video, so just a quick recap. In my opinion, the best missions for farming relics are Spear on Mars for Lith relics, Io on Jupiter for Meso relics, Hydron on Sedna for Neo relics, and Herakon on Pluto for Axi relics. Now, I'm not saying that these are the only missions you should farm and the other ones are useless. All I'm saying is that these are the missions that I've had the most success with when it comes to farming relics in the last couple of months. So I thank you very much for watching as always. I hope the video was helpful and I will see you next time. Bye bye.